The gate screamed when it opened. Cheap hinges, old iron. She froze on the stone path like she'd stepped onto a crime scene. My sister stood there with her phone already shaking in her hand, eyes locked on the house behind me. The glass, the elevation, the way the city fell away beneath it. She didn't look at me. She didn't blink. "Mom," she whispered when the call connected. "You have to see this, right now." I leaned against the doorframe and waited. That moment took 13 years to earn. 6 months earlier, my name was still a punchline. Easter dinner. 25 relatives, paper napkins, overcooked ham, forced laughter. My mother stood up mid-meal, tapped her glass, and smiled the way she does when she's about to make someone smaller. "Some kids build lives," she said, eyes on me. "Some struggle." My father nodded. My sister laughed softly. Pity passed around the table like salt. They were wrong. Just not yet. 2 weeks later, I invited my sister over for tea. Before that, though, there was a Tuesday night in November, the night the story cracked. I was sitting on the floor of my studio apartment, debugging firewall rules for a client who would never know my name. 500 square feet. One rattling window. A faucet that dripped every 3 seconds like it was counting down something I couldn't see. My phone buzzed. Uncle Ray, he never called. "I shouldn't be telling you this," he said, voice tight. "But your mother didn't lose your college fund." The room went quiet except for the drip. "She withdrew it. 42,000. I was at the bank. 2 weeks later, your sister closed on her house." Something in my chest shut off. No anger, no tears, just silence. "I kept the statements," he added. "You tell me when." That night, I didn't confront anyone. I didn't cry. I opened my laptop at 2:11 a.m. and built a spreadsheet with one column that mattered. Target. It was a number so big it scared me. Confrontation gives liars a stage. I decided to build my own instead. Over the next year, I disappeared in plain sight. 12-hour days, promotions I didn't announce, money I pretended didn't exist. While my mother told the family I was barely getting by, I was laying rebar under a future no one could interrupt. By the time she tried to set me up with a man who owned his house outright, I already had Zillow open for myself. I didn't tell anyone when I bought it. I didn't post. I didn't hint. I just waited. Saturday came slow. I baked scones. Set out 2 mugs. The house did the rest. At 2:03 p.m., gravel crunched in the driveway. I opened the door. "Tea's ready," I said. And behind my sister's widening eyes, the truth finally caught up. The first thing I learned after that Tuesday night was how easy it is to disappear without leaving. I didn't confront my mother. I didn't ask questions. I didn't warn anyone. I just stopped talking. At work, I stayed late and left early. I volunteered for projects no one wanted, the ugly ones, the ones with no applause and tight deadlines. I learned to sleep 4 hours a night and drink coffee like it was medicine. When my paycheck hit, I automated most of it into an account I never looked at. Pretended the money didn't exist. At family dinners, I smiled and said less every time. My mother filled the silence for me. "She's still renting," she told relatives like it was a diagnosis. "That tech thing is unstable. I worry she'll never catch up." My sister nodded along. Fresh kitchen photos posted weekly. Quartz countertops, brass fixtures, gratitude captions. I watched from the outside, invisible and useful only as contrast. The call from my mother came on a Sunday afternoon. "I met someone perfect for you," she said. "Owns his house outright." "I didn't ask," I said. Silence, then sharper. "You're 31, no house, no husband. I'm trying to help." I hung up and opened Zillow. Not for him, for me. That was when I understood something simple and terrifying. They weren't worried about me failing. They needed me to stay small. Months passed. Promotions stacked quietly. A new badge, a new floor, no announcements, no posts. Every time I thought about telling them, I remembered the faucet in my studio apartment, the drip, the lie. By the time I signed the paperwork, my hands didn't shake. I didn't invite anyone to the closing. I drove there alone, signed my name over and over, accepted the key without ceremony. When I unlocked the front door, the house was empty and echoing. Glass walls, hills falling away, silence that belonged to me. I didn't call my mother. I didn't text my sister. I waited. Easter came fast. The house filled with voices that had never been allowed inside my life before. My mother performed. My sister preened. And then, in the hallway, she cornered me. "Are you jealous?" she asked, softly enough to hurt. I looked at her and said nothing. 10 minutes later, I invited her over for tea. Her smile faltered. "Tea?" "Yes," I said. "Saturday, 2 o'clock. I'll text you the address." She nodded, confused, curious. I walked out before she could ask anything else. 5 days later, gravel crunched in my driveway. I opened the door and watched my sister realize, too late, that the story she'd been living in wasn't hers to control anymore. My sister didn't move for a long time. She stood at the edge of the driveway like the ground might shift if she stepped wrong, staring up at the house as if it had appeared overnight by mistake. The glass caught the afternoon light and threw it back at her, sharp and unforgiving. This is yours?" she finally said. "Yes." She walked past me without waiting to be invited, heels clicking, hand brushing the wall, opening a cabinet, closing it, touching the counter like it might disappear if she didn't confirm it was real. "How?" The word came out thin. "I worked," I said. "I saved." She laughed once, short and breathless. "You were renting." "I was." Her phone was already in her hand. She didn't look at me when she dialed. "Mom," she said as soon as the call connected, "you need to come here, now." I poured the tea while she paced. 2 mugs, sugar bowl untouched. 19 minutes later, my mother arrived. She moved fast through the entryway, already mid-sentence, already prepared to take control of whatever crisis she'd been summoned to manage. Then she looked up and stopped. 5 seconds. No words, no breath. "This isn't funny," she said finally. "What is this?" "My house," I said. "Welcome." She walked through it slowly, like a realtor without a script. Fireplace, built-ins, glass wall, the valley stretching out beneath us like a held breath. "You never said," her voice cracked. "How could you afford? I've been promoted," I said, more than once. She turned to my father, who stood frozen in the doorway. "Did you know about this?" He shook his head, eyes wet. "I'm proud of you." It was the first time he'd ever said it. The room shifted. My sister sat down hard on the couch, staring at the floor. My mother stood by the window, hands clenched in her cardigan. Then my sister looked up. "But the loans," she said. "You had so much debt. Mom said both college funds were gone." The air went thin. "Yours wasn't," I said. She frowned. "What?" "My fund was withdrawn when I turned 18, I said. 2 weeks before your down payment." My mother's head snapped toward me. "That's a lie." The front door opened. Uncle Ray stepped inside, boots still dusty from the drive. In his hand was a white envelope. He set it on the table between the teapot and the untouched scones. "I was there," he said calmly. "I watched her sign it." No one spoke. I opened the envelope and laid the statement flat on the table. My mother's signature sat at the bottom, neat and undeniable. For the first time in my life, she had nothing to say. My sister picked up the bank statement with both hands. She didn't skim it. She didn't look for a way out. She read every line like it might rearrange itself if she stared hard enough. Her lips moved silently as the numbers sank in. "Mom," she said. Quiet, fragile. "You told me this was your savings." My mother's jaw tightened. "It was family money." "It was a custodial account," Uncle Ray said, "for her education." My father sank into a chair like his legs had finally given up pretending. "You showed me a statement," he said. "You said the market." "That wasn't the real one," Ray said. "This is." The silence was physical, heavy, pressing down on the table where my life had been reduced to ink and a signature. "I did what was best," my mother said, too fast. "Meredith was getting married. She needed stability. You were always independent. Independent because I had to be." My sister put the paper down slowly. Her hands were shaking now. "You let me believe she failed," she said. "You let me think I earned this on my own." My mother turned to me. "After everything I've done for you." "I know," I said. "You raised me. You fed me. You also lied to me for 13 years. She opened her mouth, closed it. "You don't get to narrate my life anymore," I said. "Not to me, not to them." No one argued, no one could. Later, after they left, my house felt different, quieter, not empty, cleared. By Monday morning, the family knew. Calls came in waves, apologies, awkward silences, questions no one had asked before because the answers would have been inconvenient. My mother stopped calling. 3 days later, my sister did. "I didn't know," she said, "but I should have asked." "Yes," I said, "you should have." A pause, breathing on the line. "Todd and I are talking," she said, "about everything." "Good." Another pause. "Are we okay?" I looked out through the glass wall at the hills, darkening as the sun dropped behind them. "We're honest," I said. "That's a start." That night, my phone buzzed again. A message from my mother, just one line. "Can we go back to how things were?" I stared at the screen for a long time before locking the phone and setting it face down on the counter, because going back was never an option, and she hadn't yet realized what that meant. The next knock on my door would force her to. My father came alone the following Saturday. No warning, no call. Just a quiet knock at noon, the kind that asks permission instead of demanding it. He stood on the porch holding a small toolbox like a peace offering. "Your railing's loose," he said. "Thought I'd take a look." I stepped aside and let him in. We didn't talk much. He tightened bolts, tested the wood with his weight, worked slowly like he wasn't sure how long he'd be allowed to stay. I made coffee. We sat on the deck afterward, watching clouds drift over the hills. "I should have known," he said finally, staring at his hands. I didn't want to. I didn't answer. Some apologies don't need witnesses. By Sunday night, the silence around my mother had spread. Not dramatic, no confrontations, just absence. Book club stopped inviting her. Family plans happened without her name in the thread. The narrative she'd curated for years evaporated when no one repeated it anymore. She called a week later. Her voice sounded smaller, stripped of performance. "Nobody calls me," she said. "Your sister barely speaks to me." "That's not something I can fix," I said. "I only wanted what was best." "For who?" She didn't answer. After we hung up, I realized something unsettling. She wasn't asking for forgiveness. She was asking for access. My sister showed up differently after that. Less polished, less certain. We met for coffee instead of competing kitchens. She talked about therapy, about Todd, about realizing how much of her life had been staged for approval she never actually received. "I don't know who I am without her voice in my head," she admitted once. "Neither did I said, until I stopped answering. Summer came quietly. Work shifted again. Another title, another office, another level of responsibility I didn't announce. Some things felt better when they were just mine. One evening, a letter arrived, my mother's handwriting. Careful, controlled. I made choices that weren't mine to make. I don't know why. I'm trying to understand. No excuses, no demands. I folded it and placed it in the desk drawer between the deed and the bank statement. 3 versions of truth, all permanent. Thanksgiving approached. My sister called. "I'd like you there," she said. "Mom will be there too, but you don't have to stay." "I'll drive myself," I said, "and I'll leave when I'm ready." "That's fair." When I hung up, I stood by the glass wall and watched the valley darken. The house felt solid beneath my feet, quiet, chosen. Some doors don't slam shut, they stay unlocked. So you can decide, every time, whether to open them. Thanksgiving morning was cold and bright, the kind of weather that looks honest until you step into it. I arrived early and parked a block away. Gave myself time to breathe. Meredith's house looked the same. Trimmed hedges, seasonal wreath, windows glowing like a magazine spread. Familiar, tight. Inside, voices overlapped, plates clinked. Someone laughed too loudly. My mother was already there. She stood near the kitchen island, posture perfect, smile careful, not performing, watching, measuring the room like she no longer trusted it to obey her. She saw me and froze, just for a second. "Harper," she said, neutral, controlled. "Mom." That was it. No hug, no commentary. People noticed, they always do. Dinner moved forward on rails, turkey passed, wine poured. Conversations detoured carefully around old landmines. My sister avoided my eyes at first, then caught them and held them longer than before. Different now. Less defensive. Halfway through the meal, my mother spoke. "I want to say something," she said. The room quieted immediately. Old instincts. She cleared her throat. "I haven't always told the truth about everything, and I'm dealing with that." Her voice wavered, just enough to sound sincere. "I hurt my daughter." No names, no details, no apology. She looked at me like she was waiting for absolution. I took a sip of water instead. The silence stretched. Someone coughed, someone else reached for the potatoes. She nodded once, stiffly, and sat down. After dinner, while dishes stacked and football murmured in the background, my sister joined me on the back porch. "She's not going to change fast," she said. "Maybe not at all." "I know. But I am," she said. "I have to." I believed her. Not because she sounded sure, but because she sounded scared. When I left, my mother didn't follow. She stayed inside, laughing too hard at something that wasn't funny. I drove home through dark roads and open space. When I unlocked my front door, the house welcomed me the way it always did, quiet, steady, mine. That night, I opened the desk drawer, deed, bank statement, letter. I added one more thing, a spare key, not for my mother, not for my sister, for myself. A reminder that this life wasn't something I'd been given back, it was something I'd taken, and I wasn't done deciding what came next. Winter settled in quietly, no explosions, no apologies broadcast to the family. Just distance that stayed where it was put. My mother didn't call. My father texted once a week. Weather updates, small repairs he thought I should know about. Useful things, safe things. My sister kept her promise, coffee once a month. No comparisons, no subtle scorekeeping. The first time she showed up without makeup, hair pulled back, coat unbuttoned like she wasn't trying to armor herself, I knew something had shifted. "I don't post the house anymore," she said once, stirring her drink. "Did you notice?" I did. "It feels quieter," she admitted. Like I can hear myself think. That silence used to scare her. Now she was learning to sit in it. At work, everything accelerated. Decisions that used to require approval landed on my desk by default. People waited for my response. Meetings stopped when I spoke. I watched it happen with a strange detachment, like I was finally stepping into a role I'd been rehearsing for in private. One evening, I stayed late to finish a report. The office emptied out around me. City lights blinked on beyond the windows, familiar and distant. My phone buzzed, a text from my mother. "I drove by your house today, no greeting, no question." I stared at the message until the screen dimmed. "I didn't stop," she added a minute later. "I just wanted to see it." I typed nothing back. Another minute passed. You locked me out. I set the phone face down and finished my report. That night I stood on the deck wrapped in a blanket, breath fogging in the cold air. The valley below was quiet, lights scattered like a map that no longer included me. For the first time, I understood something clearly. She didn't miss me. She missed access. The next week, an envelope appeared in my mailbox, no stamp. Hand-delivered. Inside was a single document, a check, no note, no explanation. Just a number written carefully, deliberately, not the full amount, not even close. A gesture. I held it between my fingers and felt nothing. I didn't cash it. I didn't tear it up. I placed it in the desk drawer with the others. Proof that even now she thought this was a transaction. Christmas came and went. I spent it alone by choice, a fire going, music low, no audience. It was the best holiday I could remember. On New Year's Eve, my sister called. "She wants to come over," she said. "She says she's ready to talk, really talk." I looked around my living room, the walls I'd painted, the table I'd chosen, the quiet I'd earned. "Not yet," I said. There was a pause. "I understand," Meredith said. And for the first time, I believed her. When I hung up, fireworks bloomed faintly over the city, distant and harmless. I raised my glass alone. Not to reconciliation, to control. Because the next time my mother crossed my threshold, it wouldn't be on her terms, and she still didn't know what that would cost her. The knock came in early February, not loud, not tentative, precise. 3 taps, evenly spaced, the kind of knock someone uses when they believe they still belong. I looked through the glass first. My mother stood on the porch alone. No purse, no coat buttoned, hair done, but not carefully. She looked smaller than I remembered. Or maybe she always had been. I didn't open the door right away. She knocked again. "I know you're home," she said, voice carrying through the wood. "Your car's here." I opened the door halfway. "Yes?" She exhaled like she'd been holding her breath for weeks. "Can I come in?" "No." The word landed between us and stayed there. Her eyes flicked past me, trying to take inventory. "I just want to talk." "You can do that from there." Her mouth tightened, then softened. A calculated adjustment. "I made mistakes," she said. "I'm trying to fix them. By driving by my house, by sending a check, by showing up uninvited." She swallowed. "You're my daughter." "I am," I said. "That's why this door doesn't open automatically anymore." She looked past me again at the warmth inside, the fire, the quiet, the life she hadn't scripted. "I gave you everything," she said, almost pleading now. "No," I said. "You gave me limits. I built the rest." Silence stretched. Wind moved through the trees behind her, impatient. "What do you want from me?" she asked. The question wasn't about reconciliation. It was about rules. "I want honesty," I said, "and I want time, and I want you to stop telling people stories about me." She nodded quickly, too quickly. "I can do that." "I don't need promises," I said. "I need consistency." Her face hardened for just a second. The old reflex, control slipping. "You're punishing me," she said. "No," I said. "I'm protecting myself." She stood there for a long moment, then stepped back from the door. "Call me when you're ready," she said. "I will," I said. She walked down the path without looking back. I closed the door and locked it. My phone buzzed an hour later. A message from my sister. "She's angry," it read. "She says you're cruel." I typed one sentence. She's not used to hearing no. I set the phone down and sat by the window as dusk settled over the valley. The house held the quiet like it was meant to. For the first time, I wasn't bracing for the next move. Because whatever she tried next, I already knew something she didn't. This was my ground. And the last confrontation hadn't happened yet. The family dinner happened without warning. An invitation appeared in my inbox on a Thursday afternoon. Neutral subject line, neutral tone. My cousin's house. Everyone's coming. Including her. I didn't reply right away. I finished my workday, drove home, stood in the kitchen with the lights off, watching the valley disappear into fog. I went anyway. The room felt different the moment I walked in. Conversations dipped, then resumed too loudly. People hugged me longer than usual, careful, curious, like I was an exhibit they weren't sure how to approach. My mother sat at the far end of the table. She didn't look at me. Dinner moved forward in fragments. Someone asked about work. Someone else changed the subject before I could answer. The air was thick with things no one wanted to name. Halfway through dessert, my mother stood, not abruptly, deliberately. "I think it's time," she said, voice steady, practiced, "to stop pretending this family is fine." No one spoke. She turned to me. "You've made yourself very distant." I met her eyes. I set boundaries. "You humiliated me," she said. "You turned everyone against me." A few people shifted uncomfortably. No one disagreed. "I told the truth," I said. "What people did with it wasn't my choice." Her mouth tightened. "You could have handled it privately." "I tried," I said. "You didn't listen." Silence again. Thicker now. She looked around the table, searching for backup. Old instincts, old power. "I want my family back," she said. "All of it, including access to my daughter." Access. The word landed wrong. People felt it. My father stared at his plate. My sister didn't look up. "I'm not something you regain," I said quietly. "I'm someone you relate to, if you can." Her face flushed. "So what? You're just done with me?" I stood then, slowly, calmly. "No," I said. "I'm done negotiating reality." A ripple moved through the room. Not applause, not outrage, relief. "I'll leave now," I said. "If you want a relationship with me, it happens outside of performances like this." I picked up my coat. My mother spoke once more, sharp and desperate. "You think you've won?" I paused at the door. "This was never a competition," I said. "That's why you lost?" When I drove home, my phone buzzed nonstop. Messages, missed calls, my sister, my father, even my mother again. I didn't answer. At home, I poured a glass of water and stood by the window. The fog had lifted. The city lights were clear. My phone buzzed one last time. A voicemail, my mother's voice, stripped bare. "You don't know what you've just broken." I deleted it without listening again. because tomorrow I was going to tell her exactly what she'd broken, and what she never would again. I didn't call her the next day. I waited. 3 days later, my father came by again. No toolbox this time, just himself. He stood in the doorway like a man asking permission to enter a life he'd ignored too long. "She's unraveling," he said quietly. "I know. She keeps saying you took something from her." I nodded. I did. He looked at me then, really looked. "What?" The illusion that she owned my story. He didn't argue. A week passed, then another. Silence settled into its proper shape. Not punishment, not revenge, just distance with intention. When I finally called my mother, it was on a Tuesday morning, ordinary, on purpose. "I'm listening," I said when she answered. She cried, not theatrically, not convincingly, just enough to test the ground. "I don't know how to be your mother if I can't guide you." "You can't guide what you don't respect," I said. "What does that mean?" she asked. "It means you don't get to speak for me. You don't get to manage my image. You don't get to trade my life for leverage." Silence. "If you want a relationship," I continued, "it happens slowly, privately, and it stops the second you lie about me again." "And if I can't," she asked, "then we don't have one." She breathed in sharply, the sound of someone realizing the floor isn't coming back. "I'll try," she said. "That's your choice," I said. "So is the outcome." When we hung up, I felt nothing dramatic. No relief, no victory, just calm. Months later, the house still stands. The valley still opens every morning like it's mine alone. My sister still meets me for coffee. My father still fixes small things and says little. My mother knocks now. Sometimes I open the door, sometimes I don't. And that's the point. I didn't build this life to prove anything. I built it so no one else could take it from me. The house was never the win. Being unreachable was.